I don't play horror games by habit, mainly because I tend to freeze up and die willingly and end up making no progress, or talk myself out of putting myself in scary situations at all. You may be wondering why I chose a game with the name The Darkest Tales Into the Nightmare to try playing. The Steam store assured me that there was not too much scary business involved, so I felt safe enough to try it. However, it seems I stopped scrolling the Steam page too soon, since the free-to-play version of this game is actually a demo for the not-yet-released game of the same title. I will admit I was a bit blown away by all the content it seemed to have for a free-to-play, but that explains it at least. I had a sift through the options and menus at first. The game has easy, medium, and hard levels, a subtitles toggle, and a variety of subtitle languages, including English, Italian, German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, and before I say this, I'll apologise if I'm wrong, but I think the last three are Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. The voice acting has only two languages though, English and Russian, so anyone else will probably have to rely on subs. The credits showed me the game is made by a fair-sized team, though there were a few recurring names for different roles, so it seems this is a fairly established studio, but not massive. Trinity Team are the developers, but the game is sold as a 101 XP title. I decided to play controller, since looking at the controls I just felt it might be more comfortable that way, plus I didn't have to do any precise aiming and slashing is fine without as much precise control. It's left stick to move, right stick to aim, A to jump, X to attack, B to heavy attack, Y to grapple, RT to fire, which you don't use in the demo, RB to dash, LB to heal, LT to magic charge, and start for your skills menu. The model is for an Xbox One controller, but it's just equivalents for anyone with an X360. There are 10 save slots, so plenty of room for new games, and I started off being told the tale of the game with some nice picture cutouts and pans across a storybook, immediately giving it a bit of a fairy tale vibe. The game is an action platformer where you play as a teddy, named Teddy, who is reluctantly dragged from the toy box he's been left in to help Lighty. Lighty is a small ball of light that exists to look after its keeper Alicia, a small child who has fallen ill with an affliction known as dream demons. Lighty wants to save Alicia from the Dreamons, and since Teddy used to be Alicia's best friend who made her feel better when she was sad, Lighty sees him as the best candidate to start a quest into Alicia's nightmares to literally fight away the Dreamons. Teddy is grouchy and is still sporting bruised ego since Alicia hasn't paid him much attention lately, but Lighty talks him round with speak of fighting and being a hero, and so he goes along. Their slightly offline motives are a running dialogue theme, and whilst you can see Teddy does care about Alicia, he does a good job of making it seem like he doesn't really, and also expresses fatigue at Lighty's general existence. Lighty's powers have unexplained origin in the demo, but she takes Teddy into the nightmare world and tells him to find a weapon. The snowy terrain gives you a little bit of tutorial on the controls before you meet a familiar-looking figure in the snow, crouched over the carcass of a wolf. She comes over, very closely, for a chat. Whilst not being explicitly introduced, it's clear who she is by the context, but it's easy to see this game has gone for an alternate style. In this game, the heroes of the children's tales aren't so heroic, and I had a feeling I'd be seeing feral Red Riding Hood again. Thus, the first chapter is set. You have to avoid clockwork glasses-wearing wolves, find a weapon and fight them off. There are obstacles littered in the levels, everything from tick-tocking bugs on conveyor belt tracks that hunker down and hedgehog it up when they see you, to pitfalls and even snapped logs that are too spiky. The bugs are immune to attacks, so you just have to avoid them, and you can also be dive-bombed by bats, but they swoop on a set track and don't get too aggro when you attack them, so they're fairly easy to deal with. Some unique enemies appear at times, one specifically that couldn't be attacked directly and had to be hit from its roots. At times, vines grow around specific areas of the map and music starts, blocking you in until you defeat all the enemies, but usually it's not major enemies, so it's pretty manageable. The weapon you find after dropping down a pit and being glad you don't take fall damage is a pair of scissors. Plain looking, but Lighty beefs them up into Kill la Kill-esque light scissor swords. The existence of combat is something that made me happy to play a potentially spooky game, but it's way more combat-centered than it is scary-centered. In the top left, you have a scissor blade outline that dictates your lives, level progress, and mana levels. Each chunk in the split blade is a life. When you heal, you get 1 life back at a time. You consume mana to heal, and you regain mana by defeating enemies, which is also how you gain level progress. Healing consists initially of a 4-stage animation where you are sewn back together, and you can shorten it up with upgrades. When you level up, you gain points for your skill tree, of which there are 5 branches, only 3 unlocked during the demo. The Scissor Blades is one, with a tree for attack speed and damage upgrade, a heal tree to minimise healing time and increase total lives, plus your dash ability levels here as well. The other one is Magic, which has various upgrades giving you shields, shorter cooldown, longer duration, and Magic's main effect is to buff your attack. The more you kill, the more skill you get. Easy. As you go through the levels, you'll find shattered mirrors that work like checkpoints, and you can warp back and forth between level stages and levels themselves, but only in situ. Doing this also heals you, so you can find one, jump back, jump forward, and your health will regen, which is handy. You will also find magic mirrors. These save your level progress and allow you to access your equipable skills. However, if you use a shattered mirror to jump back and explore an area of level, but run past a magic mirror and then die, you will only respawn at the magic mirror, so you can't just die to get your way back and then try and warp back to where you were beforehand. The equipable skills are pickups that are hidden in the levels. Some you can't unlock until you have certain abilities or other equipable skills unlocked. Some I saw clearly were underwater, but when I jumped in I couldn't swim and took damage from it, so presumably that's a later ability. And another was hidden behind a wall that looked damageable that I couldn't hurt. This means you're encouraged to go back into prior levels the more you progress to gain more skills, and you get a percentage of completion for each level to show you how well you're doing. There are 25 equipable skills in total to find over a span of 8 levels in the complete game. The levels are designed with alternate paths, so there's good space to explore. Some areas look like dead ends, but may open up with later abilities. Level 1 ended in a 1v1 with Feral Riding Hood herself, after she got wolf meat dinner and a show of watching me kill them. I was lured into thinking I was stronger than I was and got cocky and died pretty fast, but the second time I was much better in taking my time, responding to her pretty generous telegraphs, and waiting for her to phase back into reality so I could beat her without getting shivved. The game adds in some storytelling mystery by not introducing a pair of spooky eyes that know us into the game. But we don't know them, and other than seeing the light hinting off some pointy teeth and possibly some scales, you don't get much more info than that. A storybook intro then led me into level 2, named The Gullible, and quickly explained its title with magic beans and Jack the Beanstalk references. If Feral Riding Hood wasn't enough evidence, the game shows you that the giant is already dead, so that leaves fewer options for the big villain of that level. Sadly, due to demo, you don't explicitly see who it is, but my personal big villain of this level was literally every environmental hazard, of which there were lots of new and horrible ones introduced. This included many thorns, flower platforms that gave you 1 second to get off them before they stabbed your feet, vines to jump on that reel you into the mouth of a spiky plant, leaf platforms that seem okay but water slowly drops on them and when they get too heavy they dump you off if you're still stood on them, and lightning strikes. The level focuses on platforming way more than combat, even forcing both of them constantly at the same time, so you have to focus on everything you're doing and the timing of it all very carefully. This also means it's much harder to heal since there are so fewer chances to regain your mana. The difficulty rises a bit in this level, and I can only imagine the challenge increases as the levels go on, and presumably the Dreamin' fights will evolve from a bloody prison yard shankfest. There are a few critiques I have just from what I saw. There's a slight dissonance in the visuals of the 2D and 3D animation, with scenes like Teddy in the toy box seeming a little 3D on a flat image a few times, and I'm not sure if it's to imitate being an unused toy, but Teddy's animation seemed a bit janky to start off with. If it's intentional, it works, but I wasn't quite sure if it was. He's fine in gameplay though. There's a little portion in the snow level where there's a rock drawn as if it's meant to be in front of Teddy, but the snow he kicks up falls onto the foreground of it. Really pedantic point and no problem to the immersion, I just happened to notice it. And also the initial load took a bit longer than I thought it should, but everything else in the game loaded quickly and there was no noticeable lag. The game is flowing with positives though. The combat is satisfying in sound and weight, the effects are all spot on, the mechanics all run smoothly with no noticeably unfair obstacle hitboxes or functions. The story idea is pretty simple from what I can see so far. There were a few things, especially with the glowy eyes, that gave me suspicion of a plot twist later in the story, but alas, in the demo it's not seen, so I can't confirm or deny that. It's interesting enough to immerse in the time of the demo. I like that the game effectively offers you two play motives. Since you don't meet Alicia at all other than Lighty's small blurb about her at the start, there's no particular reason for affiliation to her. But Teddy's motive being wanting to be heroic and fight stuff is a good alternative if you're not sold on Alicia yet. I like the dynamic between Lighty and Teddy with balanced cynicism and enthusiasm. They do talk a fair amount, but you can skip it and the dialogue is well written. The skill pickups are a great incentive to explore, the level designs are interesting and didn't feel samey in the slightest, the enemy variety is good, and all of it looks and feels original despite the obvious storybook character influence. There's great attention to detail, with Teddy sheathing his scissor blades in its own animation, the heel being a sewing animation specific to a Teddy, and one thing I particularly like about the corpses the game shows you in any detail is that they take the edge off the gore by making them plushy. You can see the stitches, and in a way that connects them closer with Teddy, and whilst you know it's a dead entity and it looks bloody, any gore or misshape with the body fits as a sewn Teddy that's been ripped and damaged. Of course, this leads into the visuals. In short, they're gorgeously done. Light and dark contrast, the light levels raising and lowering depending on the environment, enhancing glow in the dark and colours in the light. There are a few parts that move in the background, like blowing leaves, shifting grass, but it's subtle enough not to distract and looks great when you do focus on it. It's all really well matched with the level ambience. There's music on occasion in fights and slow piano for some areas, but the game is also comfortable with dropping off and letting ambient noise and sound effects do the work, from rustling leaves to creepy giggles. The music works great with the atmosphere, and the voice acting is fantastically done for all parties. The narrator, Teddy, Lighty, and Feral Riding Hood being all the key voiced characters in the demo. I'm not going to give it a number rating as it's only a demo and not a full game, which I didn't at first realise, but I still wanted to give my opinion on it since I got an hour and 45 minutes out of the demo alone and was enthusiastic about seeing more at the point I got cut off. The game is demo only on Steam, and any pre-orders are being hosted at store.101xp.com. The standard edition of the full game is up for pre-order at $21.99, which is £16.90 or €20.40. This gives you a copy of the game via Steam Key and their own 101XP store, desktop and mobile wallpapers, a profile picture set and the OST, and of course the full game is the full 8 levels of story, with the demo lasting about 1 3/4 levels since you don't really get the end of level 2. There's an expanded edition available too at $24.99, which is £19.20 or €23.20. This gives all of the standard edition content, plus an alternate skin for Teddy, a digital art book and developer commentary, a bonus 101XP store copy of the game for a friend, and a discount coupon for another 101XP game store title. If you don't want to pre-order, you can keep an eye on the game on their socials, on Facebook, Twitter or Discord, links to which are on their site. If any of this sounds interesting, I definitely recommend giving the demo a try, and there's a feedback portion in the in-game menu for the developers. They may be in later stage development by this point, but feedback is feedback, and they'll likely be grateful for input.